Welcome, everybody, back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Swikle, owner of Two College Brothers Moving and Storage, and the co-founder of the Moving Titan Retreat and Tighten Up Training. And today I've got a category of guests that I haven't spoke to, but one that is heavily involved in the moving industry. Today's guest is Natalie Levkovitz, and she is the co-founder and CEO of Equally Crafted Management. They are a move management company that specializes in seniors and multi-living home moves. When residents get displaced for renovations and other reasons, she currently is based in DC, Washington, DC, but she has 12 projects ongoing in 7 different states. They cover a wide footprint across the country. And today we're going to learn a little bit about the move management side and how that relates to moving companies specifically, how this entire ecosystem kind of comes together for large scale projects. A lot of you guys have asked about commercial work and FF&E and hotel renovations and different types of big scale projects. And this is a great episode to learn on how that whole side of this business works. So Natalie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on. I guess if you could, in your own words, tell me a little bit about your background and what exactly Equally Crafted Management, ECM, does.
Thank you so much, Wade. I'm excited to be here. Equally Crafted Management, we are a relocation management firm, which is a really fancy way of saying we're the middleman between moving companies, vendors, storage facilities, and developers and property managers. We deal directly with the residents during renovations to make sure that URAs are followed, the Uniform Relocation, that residents are supported throughout this temporary transition, and that we are following all the guidelines and working alongside all the teams to make sure that construction is on time or is not deferred because the residents weren't willing to move. So our worlds collide very extensively in what we do between the movers and the relocation coordinators. I always like to say the moving companies are really an extension of us. In the eyes of the residents, there is no difference between the moving company and the relocation coordinator because essentially we're there to make sure that they all get packed, moved, their items are securely stored if needed, or they're relocated with them, their items are assembled, disassembled, and they're able to continue to live their life as normally as possible while they are temporarily relocated due to construction. So I'm always asked, am I a mover? I'm not a mover, but I work directly with you guys on a daily basis, and I couldn't do it without my trusted movers. So again, really excited to be here and to kind of chat more about what we do on the relocation management side and this industry that I'm sure all of you will be really excited to hear about, because renovating existing housing stock is where the gap financing is going to in the real estate world. You asked about my background and my history. I was fortunate enough to be a chief of staff for a developer for almost 10 years. I joke and say it was the best paid education I ever had. I learned everything I could while I was there. Most importantly, I learned I'm definitely not a developer. I'm a people person. And I was able to kind of dive into this industry and where real estate and development comes together with people. And I'm a people person and found that this is a very necessary part of the industry is dealing with the residents throughout renovations and relocations. And so that's just a little bit about me.
Well, that's great. And this is a really interesting topic that's been on my mind recently because we're currently moving into a warehouse that is allowing us to take on about 4 times the storage capacity that we've traditionally been able to do. But that also opens up a lot of different lines of work when it comes to receiving, a lot more commercial storage with the racking, obviously the vaults that we've typically used for residential movers. And we're trying to figure out ways we can get into more FF&E, work with more multifamily housing units, more large scale senior projects, more hotel projects, things along those lines. Traditionally, we've been a residential household goods mover, but we have done some of these student housing projects. We've done some senior living projects. We've done some hotel work and some military work. A little bit, but it hasn't been our forte because we weren't really properly equipped. And so anything I can learn and anybody listening that's also in a similar position can learn about how to kind of break into that industry and partner with companies like you is something that I'm very interested to learn about. Can you tell me, what is the role of the mover in the work that you do? And then what are you looking for in those movers?
The mover is the most important part of what we do because without we need the movers to help us get the residents out, right? Essentially, I'm given a construction timeline, and construction does not care what we need to do to get these residents out. We need to get them temporarily relocated. So our scenarios and our options can vary depending on the property that we're working on. Sometimes we're lucky enough to have what we call on-site hospitality units, where we can have the movers come in and move a resident to a vacant unit that's on site in the property. We'll just essentially have all of their items packed up, ready to go, move them to another unit on site. Option number two would be to move them to an alternative housing community while they're renovating their apartment. Our role as ECM would be to contract and get leases with a master lease or an apartment building. We'd have the leases for the duration of the project. And then every phase of construction, we would move residents into those units, move them out, get the next group in, get the next group out, so on and so forth until we get through all phases of the project. And then option number three, which touches on your storage, is hoteling, which unfortunately is a necessary evil. I don't love moving residents into hotels, but we have to ensure that we're packing up all of their belongings, their entire home, their entire apartment, putting it in storage temporarily while their unit is being renovated, and then work with the moving company to bring everything back from storage as soon as construction is done, move the resident back in. So when I said that the movers are literally an extension of us, that is quite literally an everyday occurrence for us. Having a partnership with a really strong moving company, somebody that understands that we do, somebody that understands our resident demographics, understand what goes into moving residents in affordable housing communities that quite possibly could have generationally lived in these apartments. So what we find predominantly, because it is affordable housing apartments, is I was born into this apartment. This was my grandma's apartment. Now I have my grandkids in this apartment, and they've lived in these apartments for 10, 20 years. So having a moving company that's able and prepared to not only distribute packing supplies and be ahead of every phase 30 to 45 days before their construction starts, but being our partner and checking on the units, making sure they're packed and ready to go. So that day of move, we're not inundated and walking into 4 units that are absolutely not ready. Now it's our job as your partner to make sure that we walk these units in advance and say, hey, wait, this resident is not going to be ready on Friday. Bring your guys in on Wednesday. Let's just get them all packed and ready to go. So on Friday, you're all set. So when it comes to like bids and proposals, I want my moving companies to give me all of it. I want to know the good, bad, and the ugly when it comes to pricing. I want to know how much it costs for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom. Is this round trip? Do you have trucking fees? What's a full pack cost? What does a partial pack cost? What are you charging me for supplies? Are you charging me for supply distribution? I call what we do a white glove service. And the only way for us to do that is in partnership with our moving companies and ensuring that they understand what the assignment is.
That's interesting. And so the moving companies are basically, there's a pretty wide scope. It could be anything from coming in, packing, providing the materials, maybe both, to relocating them across the premise, shifting things around, within the property, bringing them into storage while the renovation takes place for various reasons, and the resident would have to go otherwise live at a hotel, and then the stuff being delivered back from storage. Am I missing anything on, are you ever doing long distance moves with these folks, or is it always usually typically local in that market?
It's generally always local. We try not to move a resident too far away from where they're currently located, but every day is just like moving residential. This is residential, what I like to call on steroids. Because while your day to day might be I'm doing 2-3 residential moves, that in 12 months we're essentially going to be doing 160 residential moves. It's just on a significantly higher scale. I think the other part of it is flexibility. I've called moving companies before in different markets that I know are reputable, I know are very large in their markets, and just will not or do not want to dabble in projects because they need things scheduled 3-4 weeks in advance and they need to know exactly where somebody's going. I think having the understanding that construction is construction. I walk into every resident meeting and I tell them until they put a hammer through that wall, until they go into the plumbing, it was all a dream. We're told 30 days, 30 days can be 45 days, 45 days can be 60 days. So I think the flexibility, but also the communication, knowing that we're doing our due diligence, speaking with construction, development, the residents, and dealing with the everyday nuances of getting updates. And we continue to update our moving company as we have that information. But sometimes I'll get a phone call. I need to move a stack of residents in a week, and I need you to come and pack all of the residents up. I need moving companies that have the bandwidth to be able to give me 10 guys for 3 days in a row to pack up a stack of units because they need to go and construction needs to start now. I also find that, and I just got off of a conversation with a client, the client is willing to spend the extra money because construction is way more expensive than what we do. At the end of the day, any construction delays or having to move an anticipated prospect, it's going to be significantly cheaper for us to do something 3 times and for us to charge 3 different times to do the same job than it is for construction to be delayed in any way. So I always find that the client, the developer, the owner of the building is willing to do on our end or pay whatever is needed to get the job done. Bulk trash removal. I always say moving is a great time to purge. It's an opportunity for my moving company to make a few extra bucks too, right? We can have dumpsters outside of the property. What are you charging for bulk trash removal? Let's get these residents to purge as much of what they don't need, out with the old, in with the new. Again, we do supply distribution, packing assistance, anything that's disassembled needs to be reassembled. And then we also do tenant in place renovations. And so that's a really interesting part of the moving business because we'll ask moving companies to give us a crew of movers for the entire day. And they essentially follow construction around throughout the day as they're doing flooring and painting so that the resident can come back and reside in their apartment throughout the day. We'll have to pack up different sections of their unit. So when they're doing their kitchens, we don't want their kitchen packed 30 days in advance. They need their pots and pans. So we usually like to do open storage bins. So if a resident needs to utilize some things a few days ahead of construction, they're able to do so. And then once their new equipment is installed, they can just open up their bins, put everything back where it was. Flooring and painting is a little bit more complicated. It involves, again, putting everything either in the middle of the room or side to side. So we'll need all day crews, hourly movers from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. as construction needs them to move things throughout the apartment.
Hey movers, it's Wade Swikle, and you're listening to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you've ever wasted money on marketing to the wrong homes, listen up. This is why I use USA Home Listings. They're the only platform in the moving industry built by movers that not only has new home listings and under contract listings updated daily, but now offers enhanced data that can eliminate vacant homes and give you phone numbers and emails for both homeowners and realtors, giving you multiple ways to connect and close more jobs. Their vacancy AI tool removes empty homes so there are no more wasted mailing efforts, and their Tier 2 data takes it further, providing highly accurate contact details for both homeowners and realtors for email, phone, and social outreach. The result? Higher conversions, stronger ROI, and more book jobs with less spend. Check out usahomelistings.com because it's where real movers get real leads.
It's a really interesting part of the industry because I also find that a lot of moving companies don't know how to price that. And it has to be something that's appealing enough for the landlord to say, I'm going to go with a tenant in place or I'm going to do full move outs. And I think a lot of that also depends on the cost that the movers come back with. So I think our industry is relatively new, but these project relocations are even newer to moving companies. And I think there's a lot to learn in the moving company world about how to support us as relocation coordinators to get more bids and more projects. So I feel like once I find moving companies that really understand the game of these project relocations and they're able to mobilize across the country, I just want to continue using them because so many moving companies out there see the dollar amount and think they can do the job, but they don't know what comes with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember years ago doing some similar stuff with student housing up in Gainesville when I was just starting out and didn't know what I didn't know. It was a big learning lesson because you have to mobilize. I mean, we were getting 20 to 30 guys a day doing these projects, and there were installers. And now these were furnished places that we were essentially removing the old furniture and receiving and delivering and setting up the new furniture and then hauling away all the debris that came with that. Do you ever do anything like that? Do you ever need receiving, haul outs, installations? Are these places furnished, mobile storage, or is it typically, the residents' existing items?
It's typically the residents' existing items. It's a great question, but sometimes we'll stage units. So California has a really interesting law right now that I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but all balconies and staircases need to undergo inspection every certain number of years. I believe it's 5, but don't quote me on that. Regardless of the age of the building. There was an incident several years ago that happened in California, and now it's a mandate, which moving companies, this is really great for you guys to know, because if the city deems that the balconies and staircases need to be redone after those inspections, again, and they happen every several years, then residents, of course, can't get in and out of their buildings, which is great for moving companies because that means we need to move the residents. We're working on a project like that in California right now where we've actually staged the units. So we don't need to continue to move residents' furniture every month to and from the temporary housing that we have on site. We staged it with temporary furniture, and our moving company is helping the residents get their personal items, plants that they have, smaller items, but still a huge need for a moving company as they need to go and live in a unit that's staged with just the basics for 30 days. So they still need to bring over pots and pans, their clothing, personal items that need to be cared for, again, such as plants, anything that's on a balcony or patio, because of course that's where they're renovating. And so really, really interesting how the relocation management in this kind of affordable housing space, or I mean, for California, it's not just affordable housing, it's all housing, is really different depending on what kind of project you're working on. So it can be full relos, it could be tenant in place, it could be stage units, and we're just bringing over personal items, but essentially it's all for the greater good of renovating these buildings and these apartments.
Well, if you're a California mover, that's a good little piece of information to know and understand. I know California has a lot of their own little nuances when it comes to trying to operate. We're in Florida, don't have any interest in California, but I know there's a lot of people that are. There's a ton of moving companies out there. I'm friends with a few of them, so hopefully they're listening to this. What kind of moving companies are you looking to partner with on this? Larger corporate, van lines? Are you looking for multi, independently owned, smaller mom and pops, companies with storage warehouses, big sized crews? Like what's the sweet spot that you found that you've had the most success with your preferred moving company? What style are they operating under?
It's such a good question. So I have a few preferred moving companies, and I think that's because it really just depends on the area that the project is located in. So in a perfect world, I would love to give the answer and say I have 2 preferred nationwide moving companies, and I really do prefer to work with them because they understand what we do when it comes to project relocations. I mean, one of the 2 moving companies that I work with that I really love, that's their bread and butter. They don't do residential, they don't do commercial, they do project relocations, and it is a huge niche for it. However, sometimes my projects are in these extremely remote areas. Like I have a project right now that's an hour outside of Duluth, Minnesota. And it would be great to bring a nationwide company there, but a nationwide company won't do me justice like a local one will. They started bringing up points to me such as things that freeze. So no soda can pops can go into storage because there is no temperature controlled storage in that area. And it gets so cold that, of course, when the temperature drops, soda can explode, canned goods can explode. Just so many nuances that I think a nationwide company wouldn't know. I mean, transparently, and also the relationships that can be built. So in areas that are that remote, an hour outside of Duluth, there's one storage facility. We all know what the storage facility is. There isn't a plethora of them, and the local moving companies are going to have better relationships with those, locations than somebody that's nationwide. So I think it really depends on where we are, and I think the knowledge and or the resources that a local moving company can have in a specific area. So I just put in a bid for a project. I gave them 4 moving company bids. 3 of them are nationwide. side. One of the three does have a local office, and then the last one is just a small mom and pop moving company that we use in that region all the time, but he's local and he has relationships and he has the guys. And, are they only a project based moving company? No, but they do know what they're doing. And so I think there's a huge benefit to having somebody that's in your backyard that, can literally just make a phone call versus a lot of people. I like to say a lot of moving companies kind of get a taste of this project relocation and they're like, I can do this anywhere. And it's not easy unless you're willing to commit your team or your team is willing to commit moving somewhere. Even if construction schedule says that moves are happening every 30 days. Going back to my initial point, residents will need to be packed. Supplies will need to be distributed. Things need to happen within that 30 days before a resident moves. And just coming once a month to check on a project as the moving company is not going to make for a successful project and or will make for 12, 14-hour move days when it comes to moving because you'll be packing day of move.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we look at the big corporate relocation contracts and the military and the government work and the big hotels and multifamily residentials as a lot of small or independent moving companies see those as out of reach. They just kind of assume that you're giants that are, the Unigroups or the North American or, all the different subsidiaries of those companies are kind of have a stranglehold on that industry. But it kind of sounds like it really depends that, you work with some of those and then you work with some of the local hometown dominator model businesses, the people that have been around running an independent moving company and know everybody in the community every day. I'm curious how you go about finding your moving company vendors when you get a project in various markets, or are they finding you? Are they reaching out and applying or trying to make that connection proactively, or are you looking for something specific?
Yeah, that's a great question. And 100%, the mom and pop, the smaller moving companies are just as much in the game as the larger companies. I don't always think that the larger companies have an advantage. It really depends on the region. So I would never count out a smaller local company. I think they come with sometimes just as much, if not more of a benefit than a nationwide company does because that's where they're based. So if you have a storage facility that's 2 miles down the road from the property, that's a lot more beneficial for me than somebody who now needs to go to a public storage or make their own contract because I can do that myself. I don't need the moving company for that if that's the case. I think the way we find it, combination, I don't feel like very many moving companies come to us. I think in general, I got really lucky and I started this company right at the time where this part of the development world or in the real estate world really just started vamping up. So I think a lot of moving companies don't know that this exists right now in the market, don't know how predominant of a thing it is. So Wade, you're in Florida. Relocation is huge in Florida right now for what we're doing for project-based relocations. I mean, it's absolutely huge. I mean, it's huge everywhere across the nation because there are heads and beds in buildings that have existed for 30 or 40 years and preventive maintenance will only do but so much. The way we vet local companies, I think a lot of it is, first of all, making phone calls and conversations aside from like the internet and the Google and the reviews and, your standard. I think a lot of it is that those initial conversations that we're having with the moving company, and us explaining what the project is and seeing kind of what their reaction is, right? So I've called a local moving company that was like, my guys are quick. Don't worry, I'll charge you half the price of the other guys. That didn't entice me. I don't need your guys to be quick. I need your guys to be good. I need a price per unit because at the end of the day, it's have to show a budget to the developer and I need to provide accurate pricing for my client. So I need to know what you're charging again for these different line items, for the 1 bedroom, for the 2 bedroom, for the 3 bedroom. It's great if your teams can execute in a faster manner, but I still need per unit pricing. I think the level of professionalism and the concept of having all these things on the back end, don't worry, I can get supplies to you within 3 days of you requesting them. If I have to work with a company that's going to take a week and a half to get packing supplies, I bet you I know your distributor and I bet you I call them myself all the time too, right? So like, I want to give my moving company all the business. Like, I want you guys to do the storage. I want you guys as movers to get the packing supplies. I want you guys to do the bulk trash removal. I want my movers to make as much money as possible. But if I'm working with a company that just can't execute, I can do all these things myself. Like, I assure you, I probably am calling the same box supplier that most of the people that are listening to this podcast is calling, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather just hire a moving company that's like, we'll get the boxes, we'll distribute it to all the residents, because usually my team, they're not the team that's kind of built for picking up 40 boxes at a time and distributing them at every door. Do I have ex movers that are now relocation coordinators? Yeah, but not on every project. So I don't want to distribute supplies. I don't want to have to call another vendor. I'd rather delegate that and give you guys as much of the business, and you guys make off of that what you make off of it. So I think you don't need to be the largest person in the game. You just need to be competent enough and confident enough to be able to execute on whatever the project may be, and also be able to tell me yes to this and no to this. So a lot of our projects are tight turns. Construction works Monday through Friday. My job for the client, for my developer, is to make construction stay on time. That's always what I say. Construction is dollar bills. Most of my moves happen between Friday and Sunday. And sometimes we're moving 4, and sometimes we're moving 8, and sometimes we're moving 16. But construction works Monday through Friday. So I only generally have the weekends. And of course, it's project based, right? So it depends. But more and more that I speak to moving companies, they're like, my guys don't work Sundays. That doesn't work for me. I respect that, but that doesn't work in project relocations, because construction works Monday through Friday. And if I take a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday away from them, their timeline is now delayed, which is costing my client more dollars. That was a lot. I apologize.
No, that's really good information. I mean, similar to commercial work, where a lot of times you have to work at night, or overnight, because you can't disrupt the business. If you're relocating a department within a large corporate office complex, or, moving it to a new location, I mean, those employees can't take the day off the next day. They need to be up and running the next day. So weekends and evenings, you have to adapt to that client need. Are most of your customers, are they developers? Are they government? When you say affordable living, are there grants, contractors, property management, real estate investors? Like who are you getting business from? Like, who's your clientele?
5% of the time, my clients are the developers who are the owners of the building. Transactionally, most of the time, these properties are going under a new, they're recertifying their tax certificates so that the building can stay affordable for another 30 years. So the developer is the owner of the building, and that's 95% of the time the people who contact us. We work alongside the general contractor on a day-to-day basis. It's really important for them to be our best friends and let us know what's going on. Sometimes they don't want to let the landlord know, hey, there's an issue with construction. The plumbing guy didn't show up. We're delayed 2 days. Do you think your movers can move residents on this day instead of that day? We work really closely with construction to just make sure that everything is smooth and that our clients don't have anything to worry about. I feel like as long as we work closely with construction, and then our movers are flexible and know that when things arise, we'll bring it up to them.
I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos, including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up Training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up.
With all of that said, renovating apartments is not new, right? I say that, this is a new industry and this whole renovating, is all new. I mean, technically not, right? People have been renovating apartments since before time. But before, I don't think it was to this scale or magnitude of how many buildings are undergoing serious renovations. So previously, the general contractors were like, oh, we'll move things from side to side. And our guys have no problems moving things around to facilitate construction. And I can tell you that 5 years later, GCs are no longer offering that. I think they understand the liability. I like to say everybody needs to be in their own lane. I'm not a mover. You're not a relocation manager coordinator. Neither of us are general contractors, right? Like, let the general contractors do the rehab. Let us hire the movers to move the things around. Let us consult and kind of assist everybody in knowing what their tasks are and getting the residents out to comply, because you're insured for that and I'm insured for this and the GC is insured for that. So as long as we all stay in our lane, I think it's a really good progress in the industry. So I do like to talk to general contractors and let them know, hey, if you're ever brought onto a rehab project and you guys do not want to do any of this relocation portion, we exist. And they get extremely excited because for many years, I think it's fallen on the GC. And now that people are finding out that a company like us exists, they're extremely excited because they're not qualified to do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you prospecting them? Are you reaching out to like a certain, department in these development companies, like, project manager or HR? I mean, I don't even know, like, certain roles or departments inside these companies, or are they hitting Google and looking up move management companies, or are they finding you, or are they getting referred to you, or is it a lot of relationship based? Are you working with a lot of the same development companies and word just spreads, through repeat and referral business?
I think if you do good work, really fortunate enough, knock on wood. I think if you do good work and you stand by what you do, they're going to keep calling you back. I'm not here to overcharge anybody for my services. I genuinely really like what we do. I mean, when I talk about it, people are like, wow, you sound so genuine. I wake up every day and I really like what we do. I love what we do. Every day is a different day. Turn up in apartments that I never knew would turn up. I have a resident that has quails in his apartment. And another resident that had ammunition and firearms. And, every day is a different day where you're like, okay, the movers don't want to put it on their truck, and rightfully so. And we don't want to keep it on property. So what comes next? But all of the above. I think my clients know that we're genuinely devoted to them. And that we really love what we do and we really love residents and we're genuinely here for the residents. So I've been fortunate enough that my clients keep coming back to me. Again, knock on wood, very lucky for that. If you do Google relocation coordinator, affordable housing relocation coordinator, we should be on the first page of Google. My marketing team is the best. I love them. Shout out to them. So definitely another way. I go to a lot of conferences. I try to attend as many conferences as I can and meet with as many different individuals as I can. I think it's very prudent for me to meet with general contractors. I think it's very prudent of me to meet with different developers. I think if I'm looking for somebody, I'm probably looking for the development manager that works at a real estate firm or for the development side, or I'm looking for the construction managers. I've gotten a few projects from construction managers, whether it's internal or external. A lot of developers will hire a third party construction manager that basically oversees all of us, oversees the GC, the relocation coordinator, property management to make sure that the project is all going as it should on behalf of the ownership entity. So they're a pleasure to work with as well. It kind of just depends, but predominantly, I mean, I think going to conferences and what I've noticed in this world that we kind of live in and work in, and I'm sure very similarly to the moving world, you guys have conferences, I'm sure. When you show up, people start recognizing you and people start knowing who you are. And it's like generally the same groups or firms of people. And I think I'm really lucky, and this is a networking industry. And hey, have you met this person? This is what they do. You should really meet with them. That networking, that communication has really opened lots of doors as well, I think, alongside of everything.
Yeah, well, a little shameless plug. I co-host a conference every year called the Moving Titan Retreat, and we bring together hundreds of moving company owners from all over the U.S. and Canada. We're doing our next one in September in Clearwater,
Nice.
September 2nd to the 4th. So if you'd like to talk offline on that, I'd love to tell you about that. We have kind of a trade show exhibition set up there, and it's just a lot of really good networking. We had over 300 moving company owners at our last one. So if you like to go to conferences, I'll definitely send you some info on that after the call.
Please.
But I mean, the networking is huge. That's why we started doing it, is because we started networking with other movers. Even if somebody, like, we've gotten referrals from people in Ohio that work with a restoration company, and they were doing actually an affordable senior living facility in St. Petersburg, Florida. And they sent us that referral to move, I think it was about 15 residents, because there was a fire there and they had to do a bunch of, we get hurricanes. And a couple of years ago, we had a ton of business around the hurricanes because everybody was, needing that restoration once, with the floods and the wind and everything else. And a lot of that work came just through the local networking, but also the national networking, because you never know who your next referral partner is going to be. People have contacts in every corner of the country. So that's interesting. When you're looking for movers, are you, like, say you get a project in Tampa, you don't know us, you don't know anybody else in Tampa, let's just say, are you just looking for Tampa movers and making some phone calls and kind of seeing how they respond on the phone? Do you go down and visit with anybody, or you have another approach to kind of vet out, get your short list down before you kind of take it to the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely Google best moving company in Tampa and then see what happens. I will say to moving companies that are interested in this kind of work, make sure that the people that answer the phone can somewhat understand or conceptualize that I'm calling for a large project. I need to speak to the owner, the manager, the person in charge, not just somebody that day-to-day schedules. It's funny because we were referred to a moving company. We called a local location, and that person was just like, I have no idea what you are talking about and if we even do this service. And reached out to the person that referred me. I was like, do you have a better point of contact? And then spoke with their corporate team and learned they have a huge team behind them. I mean, they're fantastic and they have a huge team. And they're like, never just call a local spot because they're not the right people to talk to. But I feel like those local people should know, hey, if I get a phone call like this, I don't personally handle this. Let me get you to the person that does handle it, right? Because that will defer me right away. I'll be like, oh, they have no idea what we're even talking about or the need or the want. And I will completely disregard. If it wasn't for the fact that they were referred to us, I probably would have never called them again, which could have, and then when I met with them, I loved them, right? So it's so interesting because they spoke my language, they understood, but I would have never had a second conversation or would have even thought to re-engage. So I would definitely suggest that the people that answer the phone understand that there's multiple parts of this moving industry. If that's something you're interested in, right? Like if you're interested in doing the projects or the corporate moves or the schools or the larger, relocations that really involve a crew and a team that you can trust and rely on, I would say make sure that the people that answer the phone have someone they can direct that to. On the second note of what I just said, every relocation I do, I want there to be a dedicated supervisor on the moving side, not just somebody that sits in the office. I'm talking about a mover, like somebody that's on site, whether you call them a foreman, whatever it is that you want to call them. It doesn't matter to me. I want to know that there is a mover on site that is familiar with the residents, that is familiar with the units, that's familiar with where we store things, or that can put a mover in check if needed. Like, I'm not there to micromanage a mover, nor do I work for you guys directly, and you guys don't work for us. I mean, it's in our contract. It's not an employee relationship. So I'm not there to say one thing or another to a mover unless I have to. Like, I think there's only been twice in my career where I've ever told a mover, leave my property and never come back, and then had to call corporate and been like, they're not allowed back on my site. But with that said, to have the bandwidth to know I'm dedicating, which usually is, I mean, let's be transparent. Like, we're speaking the same language. It's usually like one or two people on the team that you're like, I trust them with my most important project. And so knowing that you can dedicate probably your best guy, right, to this project for however long it is, whether it's 12 months or 18 months or, again, whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean they need to be there every day, but that when needed, that person can be dedicated. And I think that's really important for us because having a dedicated person on the office side is great, but we need somebody that's also like on site with the movers, hands in boxes, knowing what's happening in these apartments to be able to tell us, no, this is really what happened, or don't worry, I'll handle that resident myself, because usually that individual has an extreme amount of patience and knows how to deal with people. So we always look for companies that can provide us with that kind of reassurance, I'd like to say, of knowing that the team is going to be well supported.
No, that's such a good point. I mean, I talk about it all the time with other companies as well as my own team that in any home service, especially moving, if not more so the case in moving, if you just answer the phone, that separates you from over 70% of the other companies, every time. Not just, okay, obviously everybody has to answer the phone at some point, but if you answer the phone every single time or have a system that can route to the right departments, the right people, that is consumer friendly, you answer it with a smile on your face before you start going into selling points and before you start trying to pitch your services or, give out pricing, to get the information that needs to be had before you can do all that, because it puts you in a position to book the move. In the past, listening to calls, I mean, I've heard people call in, say, what's your price? And hourly, or if we're shopping other companies, secret shopping, what's your price? Oh, it's $120 an hour. It's like you were not in a position to do anything with that. You have no idea what that could have been. It could have been you looking for a service. It could have been a delivery. It could have been, a 3-bedroom home. It might have been another project, whatever it was. But if you greet them with your introduction, hi, this is so-and-so, Two College Brothers Moving. Can I have your name? Step one. And then get contact information to return their call, follow up with them, or point them in the right direction with the right person on your team to reach out to them. And then you can start going into some of the other details on what the move consists of, and then selling the service towards the end. Once you've uncovered the pain points that this person's trying to solve a problem, what's the problem that they're trying to solve? And there's a wide range of that in the moving industry. It's so important, and it's something that seems like common sense, but common sense isn't all that common. And, moving companies, especially smaller ones, a lot of times they don't have the resources to have a dedicated team answering the phones. And it's the owner driving down the street or somebody driving down the road in their truck trying to, yeah, I'll call you back. They forget to call them back and they lose the opportunity. So it's crazy. But step number one to success is have the right people answering the phones every single time and collecting at least some basic information to put them in a position to win that business and to set that first impression for the rest of everything else. So that's awesome information. I would love to learn a little bit more about the pricing models, because with moving, whether it's a residence or it's a large scale multifamily project, there's a lot of variables, a lot of unique differences. It's one thing to put a per unit price on something that's going to be standard, like a hotel, where it's all the same furniture in each unit. You can figure out what a price is for that. But when it comes to individual residents and their own belongings and their own furniture and stuff that they've accumulated, it's probably going to be a little bit different every time. And I'm curious, what kind of pricing are you looking for? Because a lot of movers, when they don't know how to do a flat rate, they'll just do an hourly rate, or labor plus materials and whatever other fees that they may have. But if it's a cookie cutter situation, flat rates become possible. If they go out and take a look at things, a lot of times flat rates can become possible, especially on bigger projects. We always send out a couple people from our team, both the operations and the sales side, to do walkthroughs for big projects like that. Because I feel like it just varies so much, and there's little room for error. Back in 2017, when we were doing a big student housing project, had no idea how to price it, ended up losing probably $80,000 on the move, because I thought it was a huge win. It was a $100,000 project, should have probably been a $250,000 project. Big learning, very expensive learning lesson. And most of us use software as a CRM for standard residential stuff that helps us calculate pricing. But when it's a large scale commercial project or something like this, curious, how you're pricing that, if there's a pricing matrix that you have, or that you want, these experienced companies to have, if there's a CRM that helps to calculate the totals on these types of projects?
Great question. So unfortunately, we can't do per guy per hour unless it's for the in-place moves. For the in-place moves, we know we're essentially paying for a crew of 4, 5, 6 guys for X number of dollar per hours for 8 hours a day. We know that to be true. For every other move that's a 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom, I need the price per unit, because the developer needs to know before the project even starts what our budget is looking like. I know a lot of movers do 3 guys, $120 per hour for all 3 guys, up to whatever number of hours. But some of my moves will take 30 minutes and some of my moves will take 3 hours. And that's just the reality of it. I do have moving companies that do it off of square footage. So I'm able to get square footage of the different units and then able to provide that. But essentially, the only way for us to bid these jobs is to have a set price for what the actual move would be per bedroom size, knowing that I'm going to be charged extra for a hoarder. We're going to pay for packing. We're going to pay for supplies. So I do have a moving company, I think one or two. I know I definitely have one moving company that he builds in basic packing, supplies, and the moves into his price. A little pricier than I think my average mover, but he sells it as there's no hidden fees, right? So like, yeah, I'm a little bit pricier than the other guys, but you're not going to get hit with additional fees for, light packing, not a full pack, but light packing, boxes or supplies, supply distribution, or the move. This is what your truck fees or anything like that. That's all included in his pricing. That's enticing to me because while it might be a little bit pricier than everybody else, somebody else is going to charge you less, but then they're going to nickel and dime you on, I'm going to charge you for a staircase. I'm going to charge you for, a washer or dryer. I'm going to charge you for a whatever. And so I'd rather maybe pay that little bit extra premium, knowing I'm not going to be nickeled and dimed for every other line item.
You're paying for the peace of mind. Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part? This resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email.
I have other, moving companies. I have another one that the one that they do this for a living. I think their prices are reasonable. They tell you this is what we give you as for boxes. This is how much it costs per unit per box, and then give me everything else a la carte. And then if I need to go back and say, hey, you're charging me $75 for storage. If I call them myself, I'm going to save $100 extra bucks. What can we do about pricing? Then I'm willing to work with that. But essentially, I need pricing that I'm able to, in advance of construction starting, provide my client with a budget. They have to know. I think earlier you asked me, is it the developer that contacts me? It's the developers and the landlords that reach out to us. But 90% of these projects are funded by investors being the banks. So Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they're the investors on this project. Of course, there's private investors as well, but for the majority of the time, it's the banks. And they are very meticulous when they draw down money to knowing what are they requesting money for and what are the funds for, and is it within the actual budget. So if I'm not able to give cohesive pricing that's just about what we're going to pay. I mean, I think we always know contingency. We're going to need contingency for the hoarders. We're going to need contingency. We did a move where the resident was supposed to move out permanently. Her apartment wasn't ready. They loaded the truck, so they had to unload it. And then when her apartment was ready, they had to reload it and unload it again. So that resident got charged for 2 moves because the truck was loaded and then it was unloaded, and it happened twice. Where we charge twice for 1 unit, yeah, but we know what our per unit cost is. And I think that's most important. Or for me to also then be able to make other decisions. So we have a project where storage is a problem. And our moving company was like, well, what I can do is I can bring my truck out every day. And while we're doing the work, it was for an in-place renovation. So while they're doing the work during the day, we can store the items in the truck, and then I can bring the items back into the apartment at the end of the day. This is what you'll pay per truck fee per day. If I know what my budget is and how much we've spent and where I'm at with all my line items, then maybe I can approve paying $250 a day to bring a truck out there to use it as storage as opposed to something else. So being able to budget for our clients is extremely, extremely important. I was able to save a client recently $1.7 million by getting apartments instead of hotels. So they originally wanted to look into hoteling and then off-site storage. My moving company was willing to give me 30 days free storage because they were local. but paying rent is a lot cheaper than paying for hotels. So I was able to find a third party apartment complex, lease units for a year, and save my client $1.7 million. Saving them $1.7 million dollars if I need a little bit more money in the budget because we need extra boxes or everybody wanted packing assistance, then in the back of my mind, I know I'm good, right? I have that extra money that we did not spend and we can spend it in other places as needed. So budgets are really important to us. We cannot do it on per man, per hour. It doesn't work like that for our clients, so it doesn't work like that for us.
That makes total sense. Are you doing like walkthroughs with these movers? We use a program called Live Switch that allows us to do virtual inventories, and it uses AI to calculate the inventory that's on there, which is another great solution if a walkthrough is not possible. And it also records that, so you have a record to go back in case there's ever any kind of a change. And it automatically plugs into our CRM with the total inventory, the weight, the cubic feet, which helps us come up with a really good price. And then we also do the walkthroughs whenever possible too. But with individual residents, I mean, with a hotel, it's easy. You just go into the room and you see what it looks like. If you've got, 50 people that are living in different apartments, a walkthrough may not always be feasible to line up schedules with everybody. And, a virtual estimating tool might be necessary. Are you guys doing anything like that or using any virtual estimating tools like Live Switch or anything along those lines? Or is it kind of just, every room has approximately 1,200 square feet, and this is usually what they have, and let's come up with an average.
It's funny you say that because some of my moving companies are really adamant about doing a walkthrough, and I'm like, I can show you 10 units, but there's 140 more in this building, and these 10 units, like, I always ask property management, show me the good, the bad, and the ugly, and let us walk into a unit that has a little bit of stuff, a unit that's like an average unit, and then like a really heavy unit or a hoarder. But even if we see 20 units, to your point, Wade, like if it's an 160 unit building, those last 20 might be a completely different beast than the first 20. So I think it's really hard to be able to be able to look at those units and say, oh, I feel confident in the pricing, because you'd really have to walk every single unit. So I think it's really more of a square footage and knowing some units are going to be heavier than others. I can tell you with seniors, it's always two extremes. It's either that a senior has an abundance of stuff and 3,500 plants because it's their babies and they just have a really hard time parting with things, or I walk into a senior unit and it could be a mattress on the floor, one love seat sofa situation, and a TV on the wall, and that's it, right? So I think they kind of weigh each other out. I think the moving companies have been doing this a long time, are cognizant of that. Like the one company that does this as their bread and butter, they know there's going to be really terrible units and there's going to be units that are basically empty. It's just a combination of both. I really lean on property management to kind of let me know, what is the status of your units? Are most of them really bad? Are most of them hoarders? Or most of them, do they live, with too much stuff? Do they have not enough? And I can get a general idea and give that information to the moving company. But unless you're walking every single unit, to your point, you can see 10 units. The other 50 might be different. The other 40 might be different. So you really don't know what you're getting yourself into until you walk every single unit. But from my experience, it's always been, there's good, there's bad, and there's ugly,
Yeah, no, I think, you're going to win some on some of them, if you have an average price, and then you might lose a little bit on some of them. How frequent are change orders in your business?
In regards to change of schedule or change of scope?
I guess a little bit of both, because I just imagine, if you've quoted it out without being able to actually get into every single unit or have a virtual survey with a tool like what we use, Live Switch, for every single unit. Is there, like, you get a hoarder or you get, construction's not going as according to plan. Obviously you have a budget, maybe they need extra boxes. Client ship, the resident said they were going to be packed and they weren't packed at all. Is that something that comes up often where, there's something that wasn't accounted for in the original estimate that a company comes across, or construction that's out of their control, changes a schedule and needs to sit in storage longer, whatever the case may be? Is that common?
Every day. That's the story of my life. Every day. Construction is construction, and I really do make a joke of it every time I talk to residents. They say one thing, and in a perfect world, that's ideal, but it never happens that way. There's 90% of the time a delay in construction for whatever reason. We started a project and they got all their materials in, so they were super confident and said, can you guys get out double the amount of residents that we initially asked you for? So take out, I think it was something like 24 instead of 12. No problem. I can move as many people as you want me to move. I'm that person. You tell me what you want me to move, how many people you want me to move. I can move 100 people in a day as long as you give me enough money for it, right? Like, we'll figure it out. I moved all the residents, and then they realized that their subcontractors could not handle double the amount of work. So while they had materials, while I gave them empty units, their subcontractors were still the same number of people and couldn't get it done. And so therefore, half of the amount of people I moved out had to stay out longer than they originally were supposed to. So therefore, items need to be in storage longer. I have another project right now that I know there is an issue with plumbing. I'm not sure what the issue is. I know my residents are going to be delayed. More boxes, packing, hoarders, daily basis life. Ideally, I don't personally like I'm going to give each resident 40 boxes and you're paying X amount of dollars for 40 boxes. Rather, you drop off 1,000 boxes, distribute to the first 20 residents, and go and see their units, right? Because I might only need 10 boxes while my neighbor is a hoarder and she needs 45. So instead of you giving me 40 and my neighbor 40 and the person after that 40, rather you deliver 1,000 boxes, go unit to unit, see how many you think that household actually needs. And then if we need to buy more boxes, then we buy more boxes. I think that's the part where having the budget in the beginning is really important. So I know kind of how much leeway I have. Hoarders are a necessary evil. I know I'm going to get charged extra for them. It is what it is. I kind of expect that going into every project. And then, I mean, yeah, as the construction changes, our jobs change. That's why I think flexibility and understanding and communication is of the utmost importance, because things are going to change in our world, and in our world, just tell me how much it costs and we're going to get it done. Going back to like what I said in the beginning, construction delays are a lot more expensive than whatever you're going to charge or I'm going to charge. So 90% of the time, I feel like my client's going to say, just go ahead and do it, because they don't want to pay for the delay in construction or their timeline, or they need to get the building completed by a certain amount of time in accordance to what their lender told them, right? So like they have their own restrictions, and I sometimes feel like, especially because we're the ones dealing with the people, it's like, just do whatever you need to do, tell us how much it's going to cost. For the most part. Sometimes there is a level of negotiating, and that's kind of like on me to negotiate with a client and let them know, listen, this is what we think the project needs and what the residents need. And is it going to cost you more money? Yes, but these are the reasons why it's a better idea. And for the most part, it's because we don't want the news coming to these buildings and the residents were mistreated or weren't given the number of boxes they need to get to. Like, how absurd would that be if the news came to a building and a big developer was shouted out on the news because they didn't give a resident 20 more boxes and they felt like they were unprepared for their move? Seems frivolous. So like, that's what we're there for. And then that's why we rely on trusted moving companies that can be our partners. So I can't reiterate it enough. You guys are an extension of us. To the resident, we're one company, we're one people. When your guys are on site, they become my guys. I think we take care of our movers as if they're our own. Not I think, but we do. Once they get on site, we're one unit. Because we onboard you guys too. So either way, you're a reflection of us. Our on-site coordinator works directly with the move supervisor. They become best friends. Hey, I got Jimmy tomorrow morning. I think you should start with him because he's the heaviest. My team does the due diligence on the back end to make sure residents are ready, or that you guys know what you're getting yourselves into. So you might not know it at the bid, but when it comes to the month to month or the day to day, my team will know the ins and outs of these residents and be able to tell you guys, hey, out of the 4 units, 2 of them are heavy, 2 of them are light. This guy's really independent. Where do you guys want to start first?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm assuming you're the main point of contact with the developer, the client, and then you're getting paid a sum, obviously taking, your fees for what you do to coordinate everything. And then you're the one paying the mover. They're basically your contractor. And that's, so if there's a change order, they would first come to you. And then if necessary, you would need to go to them to, increase the budget to get whatever it is done. Or
90% of the time, I'll just tell you to bill me for it. So I have a project right now. They were going to deliver the supplies to the property. And I'm like, I don't have anybody to bring it to the units. Told me it was going to be $400 to get a truck and a crew over there to distribute to the units. And I said, go for it. I don't have the capacity to do it. So I will write that in there, say, how much? X amount of dollars? Great. Go for it. Like I need the job done, and I'll eat it with the developer and I'll work with them on that. I don't need the moving company. I think they care more at the end of the day that the residents got their supplies in advance and that they have what they need and that they're not going to go to the news. Like ultimately residents in affordable housing projects and communities, they have a big voice and they'll use it. So we just try to keep them happy.
Makes total sense. What's the best way to get in touch with you and your company, Natalie, if there's any prospective vendors out there for you?
Yeah, definitely. Would love to meet all of you guys. So I'm Natalie at equallycraftedmanagement.com. It's all spelled out. I apologize in advance. It's really long. Definitely go check out our website, equallycraftedmanagement.com. You can learn a little bit more there. I think there's a link to schedule an appointment with me, but if not, just shoot me an email. Yeah, would love as many new friends and partners as possible. We are rapidly expanding in this beautiful country of ours and would love to make you all a part of it. And most importantly, teach the moving companies kind of this part of this move industry and how we can all make it work best together. So thank you all for listening.
I love it. That's what this podcast is all about. It's virtual mentorship, if you will. Well, thanks, Natalie. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been another awesome episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. And looking forward to learning even more and continuing our relationship together and continuing to talk on this section. And until next time, everybody out there, tighten up, and we'll see you at the next Moving Titan retreat. Otherwise, have a good day, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.